Have you suddenly been overcome with an irresistible urge to wash your potato? Have you begun to open your eyes and are trying to make sense of the world you see? You've come to the right place. Are you the 100th monkey? What's really going on? Prepare yourself for a journey with Tom and Ramon as we continue our search for the 100th monkey on the 100th Monkey Radio. So, I want to welcome everybody tonight. We have an amazing guest. We recorded this on last Monday, which was, Monday the 16th? Monday the 12th of September 2011. And what was supposed to be a 2-hour program quickly ended up being almost a 3-hour program. So I hope you guys enjoyed that second quote-unquote hour. A couple things I wanted to mention before we get going here. You guys may be aware we are going to a membership basis now. So if you want to pop over to the website and click on the Become a Member tab, we've kept it very cheap and very affordable. And this is for all our second hour content starting October 1st. So support us if you can. We do appreciate it. If you can't afford it, let us know. We'll see if we can't work something out. Anyways, let's see. I went over to the Awakening Center in Rainier, Washington last weekend, and went to a workshop with James Gilliland, and that place is actually amazing. I would definitely recommend anybody who is interested and lives in the local area, check out the stuff they have coming up. They have some pretty amazing things coming up. They've got, I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Malku Aribalo, and doing a course called The Master Path, Balancing the Male and Female Within. Let's see, Andrew Bisagio is going to be there on October 8th, and let's see, they're going to have Scott Huckabee and Christopher the Wolves there on October 8th. So, yeah, check that place out. They some amazing stuff going on locally here in Washington State. So, wow, this interview you guys are going to love. We go into some pretty interesting information about Otis T. Carr and the things that happened back in the late 50s, early 60s. Good stuff. Enjoy.
So, who do we have tonight, Tom?
Well, tonight we've got somebody who has been making waves in the free energy and, I'll call it cutting-edge technology for a lot of years. And he has really been coming back to the surface in the last few years and working on some stuff that we're going to find out about tonight. We've got Ralph Ring, and he's a brilliant, innovative technician who's worked as a young man in the late 50s and early 60s, worked closely with Otis T. Carr. With the aid of his small team, Carr, who was himself a protege of the great inventor Nikola Tesla, built a number of flying discs which worked prior to their experimentation being forcibly terminated by government agents. In a dramatic experiment, Ralph Ring co-piloted a 45-foot disc, a distance of 10 miles, arriving at their destination instantaneously. And so, I mean, that itself, we're going to have to find out all about that. Ralph's now 71, and we're going to find out what's going on. Ralph Ring, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine. Thank you for the compliment at 71. I'm actually, my birthday's on the 20th, and I'll be 77, double seven.
Oh, geez. Okay, this is an old bio. Either that or a typo. Wow, fantastic.
Actually, Ralph, from your picture, you look great. So
Hey, well, thank you very much. I'll take that compliment. I need all I can get now.
So I'm gonna have to say that some of this technology that you're working with has a lot of benefits that are bleed over into the human physiology and helping. Well, the stuff I've heard about is just amazing what it can do for helping to cleanse and even, I hate to use the word cure, but definitely augments or readjusts the balance inside a person's body.
Yeah, I feel just in changing of consciousness, awareness, of attitudes, changing your mind sometimes gives a refreshing, different perspective on what's been going on, but then looking at it from a different angle. So what Marcia and I have been doing is going around the country, kind of raising the consciousness, getting people to see things a little differently. Not that we want to change anybody from anything they're doing, but we'd like to add more to what they're already doing so that they could have a more comfortable life. And that breaches over into alternative energies, which we've also been working with, and it all kind of ties into one thing.
Yeah. We also have with us tonight Marcia Brown, which is, I guess, Ralph's, I don't know if you'd call it the better half or the other half or the one that jabs him in the ribs, something like that. So Marcia, welcome to the show.
She's actually Mrs. Ring, but she
is a Mrs. Ring. Okay.
Okay. We don't want to jump the gun.
Still goes by Brown, so she has to, keep both names going. But
okay, so she is the better half then.
That is questionable sometimes, but thank you so much for having me here tonight.
So, Ralph, you've done some pretty amazing things in your years. I am really curious about the work that you did with Otis Carr. Can you tell me a little bit about that? When did you guys actually start working together, and what was the project that you did work on?
Well, let's see. I guess I could start there. We came together in actually the late 50s or early 59 up into 1960, and before I worked with him, I was working for a research and development, government-funded research and development facility, and I got tired of the ways they were doing things because they weren't following the natural flow, the natural laws of nature, the way nature does things. So in a sense, I've always wanted to see floating homes or floating cities and floating countries, getting things off the ground, if you will. And so I was talking to a neighbor one day about this, and he said, well, come to one of our meetings and talk to some of the people there. They would like to hear your input because they're doing a lot of the same things. So I went over there, and they said they were in touch with Otis Carr, who was having trouble in Norman, Oklahoma, with he was building flying discs. He had the OTC Enterprise company, and he wanted to produce flying discs. So spaceships, if you will. So we got together and we talked a little bit. I talked to Carr a little bit, and the consensus was on his behalf and on ours was to come together and see if we can do something. So anyway, long story short, they sent for him and his entourage. He was having trouble. They were throwing tomatoes at him, if you will. They didn't believe what he was doing was valid and so forth. So he says, well, he would be glad to come out and talk to me because my forte has always been magnetism. I love magnetism, and I have always wondered why they haven't been using it for fuel instead of going, to the perpetual fuel of draining the earth of her natural resources and so forth. So he said, well, magnetism is what, he was most interested in and getting his crafts off the ground and so forth. So anyway, long story short, they came out. He brought his entourage with him. He had some engineers and a physicist, Norman Colton. There's about 8 or 10 of them. I think there was 8 of them. And they put us up for a while at Lake Arrowhead, California. It's up in the mountains. And at a big cabin, and said, sit tight and we'll find a place where you guys can come together and do your thing. So during that time, I really got acquainted with Carr, and I must say he's one of the most magnificent, well-versed persons on natural law that I've met. I was able to talk to him quite easily about natural law. And when I started talking magnetism, he understood the principles that I wanted to incorporate in getting things off the ground. So he said, well, let's do it. I'm cutting everything very, very short to get to where we got to, which was a big facility. Coincidentally, or I don't think there's any accidents, a big factory opened up to us. It was vacated, and the group that I met Carr through was called Understanding, and there was a lot of people from all walks of life a part of the group, and they had found this amazing factory that was suddenly vacated and given to us to operate. No, we didn't have to have any out-of-pocket money or anything. They said, just come on down. We believe in what you're trying to do, and we'll help you all we can. So that's what happened, and that was in Hesperia, California, which is actually in the Victorville area. Apple Valley is the Greater Valley area.
Right.
And so we got in and started setting things up and wanted to get things off the ground. We knew right away we'd have to get a prototype that we could introduce. We were operating on a shoestring, and I'm not an engineer. I've always just been a lab tech, but Carr and I excelled in what we call ether technology. We understand each other, where we're coming from, and in the essence that we're really energy beings and operating a physical reality. But we wanted to get the physical reality kind of getting into a more comfortable space than it's been, because it was getting kind of hard for some people to make a living, to take care of families and education and stuff like that. So anyway, our goal was to build a prototype, the prototype of which consisted of what's called the neutron electrical accumulator. It's not a generator. It accumulates energy. It pulls energy right out of the ethers, right out of the air, if you will. And it's like catching a streetcar. You can grab onto energy when you need it and let go when you don't, in a sense.
So was it? This was based off of Tesla's type energy?
No, well, Tesla didn't get quite that deep into magnetism. He was more into the working with the ethers and realizing that you don't need a lot of side steps to get any device working. If you understand that you only need basically a negative and positive to make anything work, then you don't have to have a bunch of wires or a bunch of machinery or scopes or anything to get things to work.
Right.
But he also wanted to get things very much off the ground. In fact, one of his main dreams was to get a flying craft, a spaceship built. And when we identified with his techniques, it was very close to the same thing we wanted to do, was just running pure magnetism for our propulsion, if you want to use the word, system to get things off the ground.
Ralph, here's a question about you. How was it that you started understanding the natural laws? Because from my understanding, they don't really teach that in the universities and school.
Thank you for asking. I was raised where I am now residing. I'm in Northern California in a place called Paradise. It's between Mount Shasta and Lassen Mountain Range.
Above San Francisco.
I beg your pardon?
Above San Francisco.
A little above San Francisco.
Oh, okay.
And my sister, well, we were raised here, and my sister and I used to walk 7 miles to school every day, 3.5 miles each way. And school was just we had a one-room schoolhouse with no lights, no running water, and et cetera. So the teacher would take us out and show us, not just book learn us, but would take us out and show us how flowers grew and why and how things worked in nature. But our greatest reward was going back and forth to school, because we took the teacher's idea and looked into everything we could find, how trees grew. We found out that everything is in a word, vortexual in motion. Everything vortexes and moves and breathes in and out or pulses its growth. It works and rests and works and rests like we do when we breathe. So anyway, all of that was studied by my sister and I, and we became quite acquainted with natural law. And when I got out and did get into an academic school, which I graduated from grade school, the 8th grade here in Paradise, and then I went out and found that high school and beyond was just boring. They had nothing that interested me at all, because their ways and means were not based on natural laws at all that I could see. One such reference, to give you an idea, was I was in a science class in Santa Cruz, California. That's where I was at the time. And a science teacher was saying aerodynamically bumblebees can't fly. And at that time I looked out the window and there was a bumblebee staring right at me. So I said, I think I'm going back to nature. And, with all due respect, I just kind of slowly left the academia world and went back into learning things from nature. And when you trust that you're going to find the answers that way, they somehow have a way of coming to you. And I met through Carr and his entourage, which consisted of Wayne and Arthur Aho. Wayne Aho was an intelligence officer operating with, I think it's called Blue Book, on UFO things in the service. And he absolutely decided to quit and get away from it because they were withholding a lot of the information from the public. And he decided to join us and try and get the truth out to people about what was really going on. But his brother wrote a book called Tomorrow's Energy Need Not Be Fuel. It's in the Library of Congress, I believe. And in that book, he was explaining to me that I had to give credit to my science teacher, because as far as he knew, aerodynamically they couldn't fly, and that's pretty accurate. But they actually levitate. And he explained to me how they did that. They next to their larynx in their throat system is a little hollow cavity, and when they beat their wings, they start beating their wings when they reach the resonant frequency of their surroundings. And just for a reference point, 8.7 or 7.8 cycles, being the Earth's spin, it was anytime at that time. Once you reach the resonant frequency of something, you have the ability changes. And so it actually creates a magnetic bubble around itself and levitates and creates its own force field. So anyway,
So do you think that all bees, like wasp, and because I heard a story where there was a bee, and I don't know, well, do you remember that story, Tom? Where it was like broken in half and it had like a magnetic charge to it. So when one of our guests, Jason Verbetti, he put a pin to it, a metal clip to it, and it levitated around it. So there was like a magnetic force between the bee and the metal, what do you call it, the little pins that women use to pull like their hair, the eyebrow hair.
Tweezers?
Tweezers, thank you.
Yeah. I haven't heard that story, and I know, just briefly, I know Jason. He's working now with Cyril on the Cyril discs down. I think they have a place in Southern California, but I've never heard that story. But actually, inside of all insects is a magnetic coordinates and system that they really use to navigate with. And so magnetism is not foreign to the insects or anything. As a matter of fact, we're all magnetic.
Right. Well, it's an electromagnetic universe.
Right. So I'll let you ask the questions because I'm going on here.
Okay. Well, I want to get back to the craft that you guys actually test flew.
Okay.
So how long? Well, you guys started developing this in Hesperia, and how long did it take to you guys to actually get this thing put together?
Well, we worked 24/7, and I mean, we were all in love with the work because it was just exciting to us just to be. And you get around magnetism, you don't need a lot of sleep, you don't need a lot of rest, or even a lot of food. It just you're absorbing the energy, I guess. But so we worked 24/7, and that's what we wanted to do because we knew that the theme of the times was to keep anybody talking or doing anything about free and abundant energy was not a popular subject.
Right.
So we started building these small prototypes, and as I mentioned before and got sidetracked, the accumulator is our way of grabbing onto the energy that's all around us. We're living in a whole ocean of energy, and all you have to do is grab it. And the way you grab it is through this accumulator, which was Tesla's and the Carr's innovation. They found out from experiments and just insight that would come to them. They were both very, very good visionaries, and they would put things together in their head to save a lot of time and space. And they found that the photonic solids, which basically was 5, could be all put into a very simple one structure, and that's what they call the neutron. It's kind of a double tetrahedron, like 2 ice cream cones on top of each other.
Right.
And in there is just pure space, but the way it's built, how it's built, the time it's built, and everything has everything to do with sacred geometry. You have to be exactly on the right node at the right moment, at the right spacing, and that's very taxing to be able to do that. But most of the, a couple of the engineers there were really well versed in natural laws and how harmonics worked and how important it was to use resonance as our guide. We would use resonance to test our equipment and get things into alignment. So the accumulator we were going to use eventually for small devices that anybody could, that wanted them could put them in their homes and actually obsolete the power systems and the boxes they had on their homes generating electricity and selling it to them. Because in essence, we've gotten away from the fact of it really is free and abundant energy that we live in. The sun comes up every day, and without that, we'd all be dead. And if we didn't have the earth to plant seeds in, again, there'd be a
right.
situation. And the wind to scatter the seeds, and the water, of course. So it's all free. But somehow we decided to, a few of us decided to grab it and hang on to it and make machines to sell it back to us. Now they're selling us water, which
yeah,
they'd sell us the air if they could. So anyway, we wanted to build these small devices to put in people's homes, and we've never given up the idea. And in fact, when we get later on in the conversation, I'll tell you what we're doing now. But the spaceship was that was my baby. I really wanted to see things get off the ground and have a home that could be a few inches or a few miles or a few thousand miles above anything. Or there's no noise, no pollution, no
Jetsons, huh?
No accidents can happen in a magnetic field, and above all, no weapons can ever be used in a magnetic field of the nature that we were using. The craft themselves, and I'll get into this later on consciousness if you like, is run by consciousness, and that is basically what we call love. You have to love your work, love everything about it. Every move you make from A to B has to be consciously noted and put together. Otherwise, if you're a nanosecond off, it won't work. You have to be right on target.
So that would be you're combining your through that building of your consciousness and the awareness of the device that you are interfacing with. You would draw on like your intuition to sync things together.
Thank you. Yes, that's exactly it. We and I'll tie this in later if you like, but at one point I had to, we were dispersed quite abruptly, and I went to Arizona, to a remote area, and decided to do things on my own. So I proceeded to build I was going to do it myself, but I didn't have enough knowledge. I'm not an engineer, and there's a lot of things I didn't understand. But I wanted to build an underground house, and so I did. I originally wanted it to be levitational, but I didn't get that far. But I did build an underground house, or it built me, I should say. The way we found it, we had to, circle the areas in northern Arizona for days until we found the right piece of property that was repeatedly calling us back to it. And once we felt that we would fit there very nicely, we bought the property and proceeded to, I'm just going to shortcut it a little bit here, but I proceeded to build this house built on all the specs that we were building the spaceships with in Apple Valley. And as I went, all you have to do is have the intention to do something, and when you tie in with nature, she'll show you what to do. And to give you an example, we decided eventually to use cinder blocks to build the circle. We had a 45-foot diameter space to build with, and we were laying these cinder blocks one on top of the other, trying to build our walls. And I remember one night, it happened several times, but this one night I was just really exhausted. We'd worked all day and it was been hot, and I put the last couple of stones in place and thought, well, that's good enough for tonight. Let's do it in the morning. So my wife and I decided to quit, and we went up and ate and went to bed, and I couldn't quite get fully to sleep. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, I said, well, what is it? Something's bugging me. I don't know what it is. And it was the house calling me to tell me that I was a 16th of an inch off on laying the last couple of stones. And if I left it that way, I was in for trouble the next day. So get up and go down and fix it.
Oh.
I mean, that's my terminology on it, but that's basically what happened. And so we got our headlights on, or we had little headbands with lights, and my wife mixed up some mortar. I went down and kicked these blocks loose, and I put them in place using the word that you use,
Intuition.
Yeah. To lay the blocks in, and if it didn't feel right, I had to keep moving it until yes, that's it. And then it let us go back to bed. So. And the same thing happened when I got with Carr. He understood this very, very well, and so does some of his engineers. And so when we did something in the shop, if it was a new move, we'd call each other around. We'd call them off the bench presses or the lathes or wherever they were. Say, come over and look at this, and get them to feel with their intuition the same feeling we got when we laid it into place, whether it was a drawing or a piece of equipment or a part. Because if you don't use that intuition, then you're wasting your time, because it'll never really get you where you want to go.
Well, that's definitely there is so much truth there, and insight as far as the way things are put together in our world right now, and looking at the state of our world through the ways that we do things, versus what the state of our world would be if we were to use that type of feeling and intuition when we were actually designing and building and creating.
I almost feel like the school system and the employment system really beats it out of you. Like they denaturize you. But to go back, because I remember one of the things that I was watching a video. I forgot who was interviewing you, but you were talking about how you had one of these prototypes, and when it started, the small prototype, it started spinning and levitating. It became translucent. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure. Well, let's see. Before we took our prototype to market, we had a lot of test models, and some of them would work, some of them wouldn't. But one of them that I remember working on, we were all, the engineers and I and Carr were all around this one model, and we started raising the vibratory rate of the aluminum shell and the craft itself, which was a T6 aluminum. It was a pretty hefty aluminum shell. And actually, we were vibrating the accumulator inside the craft. But and at that time, we had two rotating wheels, counter-rotating, one going one way and one the other. We obsoleted that later on with solid-state circuitry, but at that time we had moving parts. Anyway, we started the vibrations, and it started resonating this craft. And I remember touching it. I could feel the shell of the craft. It felt very, very solid. But the more they raised the frequency, the vibrations would raise, and the resonance started getting more in tune with itself, if you will. The skin of the ship would turn to jello. And my fingers were, it was quite funny, because I thought the vibrations were disintegrating the metal. I thought, well, it must be, some kind of a resonance that's causing the metal to disintegrate. But then I kept on with it, and then I finally put my hand completely through the shell, in and out. And right away, I remember my brain saying, "That's impossible. You can't do that. And Carr was over there laughing with one of the engineers because he had told us that before. And when I worked in the lab, when I worked at Advanced Kinetics, a friend of mine was on the electron microscope, actually in a very advanced electron microscope, and had told me and showed me, proved to me that we're really energy. We just are creating this image of reality instantaneously, and actually what you could equate to nanoseconds. It's all being done. We're all manifesting this as we go. And what he did was give me your finger, and he rigged this little thing up where I could stick my finger through the slot and look at it through the scope. And he said, well, what do you see? And I kept putting my finger in and out. I could see my finger, and I put it in, and all I saw was energy, and back and forth. And he said, that's right. That's what you are. You are just energy. You were held together with, and we concurred on the idea of magnetism. Magnetism is a glue that holds everything together. But in essence, and I don't know how I saw it with my third dimensional eyes, but I did see that I was just pure energy. And then Carr, when I got together with him, he said, well, of course. He says, that's very fundamental. You don't read it in your science books, but energy, outside of energy, can't be created or destroyed. They don't go on to tell you that you are an energy being and creating your own physical reality.
Right.
Taught in the schools I went to. And he said, when you synergize your energy with anything else, you have the power, the understanding, the love, if you will, to change it. All right, you resonate. It's like two tuning forks on one side of the room or the other, or two guitars or two pianos. Once you hit a certain note, clear across the room, and in some cases clear across the lot, you can resonate that chord, that same chord.
Yeah, that sympathetic resonance. Yes.
Sure.
Yes. So when you put your hand into this prototype, were you actually able to feel the field as you were putting it in there, or was it just no sensation at all?
Well, I had a complexing little thing happening because my brain, and that's, I should have put this in earlier, but Carr explained that the brain has an optimum capacity to. It's a computer that operates what we call a body, which is a machine. And it takes good care of its machine if you let it. All the organs, all the cardiovascular, all the lymph gland systems and everything are all taken care of. And it is not interested in anything out of its jurisdiction. It doesn't want to hear jumping frogs or flying saucers or anything. It wants to take care of that. So what it's going to do immediately when it feels threatened is to close you down or shut you out by telling you it's impossible. It doesn't exist. It can't exist. And it won't exist if you let it. So he said, don't listen to your brain. It's like a monkey brain. It keeps going on and will tell you can't and you won't and you don't. But I'm telling you, you're an energy being. You've always been. You are now, and you will always be who and what you are, because we're really immortal, very creative beings that forgot. And so when your brain starts telling you those things, don't listen to it. Just politely, don't try to stop it, because it's going to. The more you try to stop it, it'll go on. Just try to say yes, I'm listening to you. So it seems, and let it go, and go on with your task. With what your mind is doing. Your mind is seeing, really, with your pineal gland, if you will, or your intuition, if you will, more than your physical eyes, what you're doing. So when I put my hand in, it felt rather natural, like, oh yeah, that's nothing to this. This is simple, and it felt very good. I felt, oh yeah, I can do this. I can probably walk through walls now or something. I mean, that was my attitude anyway, and but my But my brain, I was fighting with myself because my brain said, no, that's impossible. You couldn't have done it. You can't do it, and so forth. And he says, well, this is just the beginning, and in order to operate the larger crafts, we're going to have this as second nature. We're all going to have to be able to use our minds and our hearts to operate the vessels, or they won't work. So, so it felt quite good, and I talked to Carr quite a bit about it after the experiment, and a couple of days later we had another similar experiment, and I was going to do the same thing, but before I could do it, the entire model disappeared. And Carr said, that's okay, that's what we wanted to do. It teleported, and we asked him where, and he said, well, I really don't know. But, and it might still be there, but it's outside of our range of conception. It's a third dimensional, we're in a third dimensional conception, and it's probably in a multi-dimensional stage right now. And it may come back or may not or whatever.
Or it can show up on your coffee table.
Yeah.
Years later.
It could show up anywhere, you know.
Yeah. When you stuck your hand in there, did you ever feel like a blending of consciousness between you and the because I'm definitely one of those believers that everything has a consciousness.
When I put my hand in, of course my brain was rattling, trying to get me to stop and forget about the whole thing. But my intuition, my spirit, if you will, or my consciousness, if you will, synergized with this craft, and it was a loving experience because Carr explained there's only one way to traverse through the multiverse, and that's to love it. You have to have love and synergize with love, with everything, and you have to become one with whatever it is. And in this case, this is this little 3-foot little model that we're working on, and it felt very etheric, very a great sense of love, compassion, feeling, and respect all in one. A great deal of integrity was going through my whole system at the time.
Did you have that expansive feeling of oneness, of unity?
Yes, yes, I did. And Carr explained further to us about that. The fact that he says, forget thinking, he told all of us in a conference, he said, forget thinking that you're anybody because you're everybody and nobody at the same time, which seemed to be a paradox. And I said, well, wait a minute. He says, that's what's known in our vernacular as the 0 point. Everything converges and becomes nothing and everything at the same time, like a black hole to a white hole, or whatever terminology or labels they care to put on them. And that being said, he said that there's only one of us here. And this gets into deeper consciousness. If you don't want me to go there, I won't.
Oh, no, absolutely.
Oh, no, we definitely want you to go there.
Okay. He said there's only really one of us here. And Ralph, it could be you today or me tomorrow, it doesn't matter, but there's only one of us here experiencing externally what's going on internally in our consciousness. Everything that you experience externally is going on inside, and that's supposedly to make it easier for you to solve your daily problems or equations or so forth. But we've made it very, very difficult. But he said that energy's everywhere, and when we take we're going to take a test flight on a larger craft. We had 3 of them. One of them was almost complete, and the other 2 were, 2 of them were almost. One was not complete, and one was almost complete. And that's a 45-foot craft. And he said, we want to, as soon as possible, get that in full operation and take it from there. Well, I'm getting ahead of the story. I'll back up a little bit. So he said that in our consciousness, forget the speed of light. He says your brain's going to say you can't exceed the speed of light, and so the first second, all the physical laws of like thermodynamics and everything are going to be obsolete because they don't exist where we're going. And I said, well, where are we going? He said, we're going to be multidimensional. He said, you can put any labels you want onto it, but you're going to have to realize that you are already everywhere. I am already everywhere. We are already everywhere because we're all one connected collective consciousness. And to travel through what we call dimensions or space or whatever, you have to realize this. You have to really know who you are and what you are and what your intentions are. In other words, the speed of thought then comes into play, no longer the speed of light, and that you can go anywhere instantly by realizing the speed of thought is nothing but a thought away. But you have to, again, going back to sacred geometry and resonance, you have to have everything in exactly alignment. The alignment has to be perfect, has to be precise, and you have to be totally in love with what we call life, or the essence, or the source, or God, or whatever anybody would like to put on it. You have to be total surrender to that in order to complete your intention. And then it'll happen over and over again. But the thing that Carr wanted to teach us was the awareness, to raise our consciousness high enough to realize it, to be able to see it. Because he also said, people are doing this all the time. Everybody's teleporting, everybody's already there. They just don't know it. They're kind of in a deep sleep. And they need to, and this craft and the accumulator is a device to help wake them up and realize who they are and what their capabilities are. And there's nothing but choice. They have their own free will. We don't want to force anything on anybody. But some people have horses. The Amish still have horses, and I have a few friends with Corvettes and Maseratis, and they still want to hang on to them. And I like my little cut channel 41 Ford coupe. I'm not going to give that up either. But we just want to add something. We want to add the ability to get off the grid, take the energy and put it home where it belongs, in the individual. And
so this is like, man, this is so many people's dream to be able to have this and to be able to do this, especially with the way consciousness is raising right now on the planet. I just have the feeling that we are getting so close to actually being able to get to where we should be, or get back to where we should be right now with our interaction with life, with our interaction with nature.
Yeah, excellent. It's a case now of no longer learning, but a case of remembering, putting the pieces back in place, so that we remember who we are and what we are, because we're all, in a word, gods. We all have the capacity of doing anything we ever would want to do, and on any level that we care to do it. But we have limited ourselves by buying into the idea that we're less than we think we are, and we're starting to listen to the machine that we created, which is a physical reality and a physical body, and
right.
And we start doing that, we become slaves instead of, we become participants instead of observers in our reality.
Right.
And,
So we have the 3 craft just about finished, and so how did that first test flight develop?
Okay, well, before we did that, we got a prototype working. We actually, and we were elated every step of the, we'd make one little jump forward, and we'd sit around and just be so joyous about our progress. because nature was giving it to us. We would make a move and it wouldn't fit, and then all of a sudden we'd lift and it fit. And so it was a wonderful feeling when we were progressing, and we finally got the accumulator up and running, and we had a small little prototype. We had several little prototypes that we were using to actually fly around Apple Valley, and people became frightened. They thought they were flying saucers because they weren't hurting anybody. They weren't doing anything. They were just our tests, but they saw the lights and the corona around them and so forth. So we got to the point where we felt our prototype was worthy then to go to the next step, was a manufacturer, to get somebody online that would help us go to the public and start producing these things on, a manufacturer. And we didn't know then until later that BMW Motor Car Company had already done this in the 40s. They had built spaceships in the 40s. But we didn't know that then. So we called on General Motors. Our PR man, Wayne Aho, called General Motors and asked them if they'd send a rep out. We'd like to talk to him. And they sent him out. We met in Riverside, California. And he brought his barrage of people. He had several engineers and a physicist or two, and I don't know, all kinds of people there. And we came in and we had our little prototype in a suitcase, and Carr put the suitcase down and opened it up, and then just set it on the rep's desk, and it was just sitting there. And the guy says, "Well, so what?" And he said, "Well, we'd like to get these off the ground into the air, take the tire from a vertical position and put it into a horizontal, and make homes and cities and countries out of these, and so forth." And the guy said, "Well, what are you talking about?" It's just sitting there. And he says, and as Carr was talking, it started to raise up off the table until it levitated about 6 inches above the surface of the table. And so right there, they stopped everything. These guys started pulling out these gadgets. I don't know what they were, all kinds of measuring devices, asked us to take our jackets off, and they scanned us with these things thinking that we were remotely controlling this. And we said, "No, it's done by and Carr used our love. He was jokingly saying, he says, "We just love what we're doing, and it's running on love." But he was really serious, because he was operating it with consciousness. And in those days, that was not even good science fiction.
In those days, what about now?
Yeah.
But
so basically, you're saying that Carl, because he put so much love into it, that he was able to operate it on a telepathic level?
even more than that, and more than a telepathic level. It's like now they have what's called the what is it? The KX. What is the name of that? It's an aircraft. X-115, is that it? The X-115, and now they have the Aurora. But the X-115 was one of the first ones that ran on no controls. It just ran on. They put diodes on the guys, on the pilot's head, and they made a movie of it called
Firefox, wasn't it?
Firefox, and beyond. That was just the beginning of controlling things with your mind and your heart. But it was limited because they didn't know and have the same feelings that Carr had about humanity. I mean, if they had a duration. In other words, it would work for a while and then it wouldn't work, and so forth. Where in our craft, we wanted it to work forever. And once magnetic energy is fully realized and put into use, it's what we're breathing. We breathe in magnetic energy. Everything is constructed of it.
Right.
So it's there forever. So anyway, they scanned us. They thought we had wires. They thought we were doing it. And And Carr said, no, we're actually controlling it with another technology. We call it ether technology. And we'd like to introduce this. And we will all be at your service, so that you can understand us completely and fully before you draw up plans to help us. And the guy said, well, what are you using for power? And we said magnetics. And he said, well, no, you're going to upset the monetary system. We've got General Motors has hundreds of thousands of people at work with families to feed and everything. You guys, and he called us outlaws. He says, you're outlaws. You're operating beyond the known realms of physics and the known realms of compassion. I said, wait a minute. I didn't say that, but one of us did. Compassion is what we're trying to exercise here. We do have compassion, and we want what we're producing to be available to everyone on all levels. Because if you have their energy needs met, then they'll be able to do what they came here to do, which is be a creative being beyond the imagination. Worry about 70% of their income going to take care of energy, which it is now 70 to 80%. I understood lately, just to satisfy the energy needs. So we want to give them free and abundant energy, so that we have a world put together by these geniuses that will come out of the garages and the backyard workshops and stuff, and give us a system that it would be so beautiful and overwhelmingly slave free.
Right.
Yeah.
So can I put Marsha on for a minute? I got to take a drink of water.
Oh, well, certainly. Actually, we are reaching the top of the first hour, and we want to finish this talk about that test flight here in the beginning of the next hour, and then we want to go into some of the stuff that you're working on now, and some more of your insight on consciousness. I just find it fascinating. So if you would tell us what your website is and how people can get a hold of you.
All right, it's very simple. It's lowercase Blue Star Enterprise. Enterprise is spelled with an S, not a Z. BlueStarEnterprise.com. It's blue, BLUE, Enterprise, ENPE. I can't spell it.
ENTERPRISE.com. There we go. We have a link on the website for everybody. You can just click on that, and it'll take you right to Ralph's page. And wow.
Yeah, this hour blew through fast. Our website is www.the100thmonkey.com, and all of Carl's information is there. And anything else before we?
Condemnation without investigation is the height of ignorance, and Brooks is coming up next, and check him out, and then pop over to the archives and listen to the second hour with Ralph, Ring, and Marsha. Namaste.